With the second half of the season getting ready to kick off, what are the big storylines that I'm tracking for the San Jose Sharks as they try to pull themselves out of this 0-12-0 funk? So all that and more on today's episode.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite tanking team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. And I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day, even if they're losing 12 straight games. If you want to be an everydayer yourself, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at some of the big storylines for the Sharks as they kick off the second half of their season against the Montreal Canadiens, including if this injury bug is going to continue, who gets traded, who gets called up, and if the Sharks can finish the job. And by finishing the job, I mean putting themselves in position to get the number one overall pick. So before we get into all of that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Jace Case. Empower yourself with your purchase of a Jace Case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. Use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's JASE medical.com. And the Sharks do go to Montreal to play the Canadiens tonight, starting at 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can catch every hit, every shot, every goal from the Hometown Sharks broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Sharks. All right, so last time we kind of did the quarter poll, three-quarter poll, whatever the racing. I always forget the rate. But anyway, I think 25% marked about the 21 games. We looked at dug into more of the stats. The stats are still bad. So I wanted to continue to talk about kind of the bigger, broader storylines for the Sharks this year. And as they enter the second half, and the trade deadline is now less than 2 months away. So wanted to start to kind of dig in those. But I think the overriding big story for the Sharks this year has been the injury bug, right? They lead the NHL in man games lost so far. You think about Logan Couture still has not played, not going to be playing on Montreal. The target is potentially Saturday against the Sens. If not, you have a Monday morning at 10 a.m. against the Sabres, or Tuesday game. So, and then they don't play until I think it's that Saturday. They have kind of a nice little break there. So if Couture does want to play on this road trip, starting to kind of run out of games here, right? So the injury bug has been the kind of overriding story for the Sharks this year, right? With leading the NHL in games lost because of injuries, of course. Like I said, Logan Couture missing the whole season. Matt Benning, who was a very solid defenseman for the Sharks, right? He played a whopping 14 games this year with injury, and then was lost the season with injuries, having hip surgery. Nico Sturm, third or fourth center, right? You came into this season feeling really good about the Sharks center depth between Nico Sturm, Logan Couture, Tomas Hertl, Mikael Granlund. Like, you're like, okay, like the Sharks center depth feels pretty solid heading into the season. Nico Sturm, who's been out for nearly a month now with a wrist injury, and still waiting to hear from him, right, on what kind of his progress will be. Again, don't know. So yeah, his injury was the 13th, right? And he's missed some games here and there because of some getting nicked up. But wrist injury, and for a guy like that who said, I'm not coming back until I'm 100%, especially if he can't do faceoffs, and Nico Sturm is such a prominent faceoff man, that a huge loss for the Sharks this season, right? And Nico Sturm had a career season with San Jose last year, at least when it came to production. Was arguably, the best pickup that Mike Greer made last, off season when he first got the job. You counted on a guy like Nico Sturm to really hold down the bottom six, and you've seen the San Jose Sharks bottom six has been atrocious, right? Especially when it comes to scoring, and this team which can't score more than one goal right now. Again, just having some stability on that bottom six where you can have guys in their prominent places, right? You're not having to play Luke Cunnin on the third line center. You're not having to kind of play Philip Zadina on your fourth line center, having guys play out of place because of all these injuries. And then that kind of even trickles down to the Barracuda, right? Ryan Carpenter was supposed to be the 1C. He's been up in the NHL basically since like the second week of the season because they needed guys to be able to play center. Your center depth has been a huge issue with the Sharks this season, because again, a lot of it starts with Logan Couture not being able to play, but then that Nico Sturm injury just kind of compounds it. Alexander Barabanov, right, missed a good chunk of the season because of a fracture in his finger, and then you've gotten basically everybody else has gotten nicked up here and there. The blue line has been, there's been basically everybody except for Mario Ferraro has missed games because of injury. And now Ty Emberson, who missed, about a month of the season with an injury. Now he's week to week with a upper body injury that just came out on Wednesday. So Emberson, who's been playing really well, especially coming back from that injury. Again, now you're kind of losing another guy who's been a solid player for you. It looks like Marc-Edouard Vlasic's going to have to slide in, and we know how Vlasic has played this season. So do the Sharks see some of this turnaround, right? You expect Couture to be back sometime. You hopefully Nico Sturm is able to kind of come back here pretty soon as well. What does this roster look like when you actually have everyone available? Or is this just one of those years, right? That year from hell where everybody gets hurt and you're just trying to kind of patchwork a roster together for the entire season. You hope, again, right? You hope at least for the development of some of the younger guys, that you have some of these stalwarts in there, right? Having Logan Couture come back is going to be a huge boost to the Sharks because it helps slot everybody in better, right? You're able to kind of have a guy who can play with Couture. If you want to partner a young guy with him, or if you want Couture to kind of play some penalty kill or whatever you want, it just kind of makes everyone slot into their position. So is the injury bug gonna, kind of go away, or is this just going to be something that, hampers the Sharks all year long, right? You've even had like illnesses, right? Anthony Duclair, who missed like a week because of strep throat. Mike Hoffman, who got sick around Christmas. Is this going to continue? So that's the hope, is the injury bug at least gives the Sharks a break, so we can actually see what this team could have potentially been at some point. Or the worst case scenario is you're putting your younger players in a better position to succeed because you actually have veterans out there, right? You don't want just the kids running around and kind of being left up to their own devices. You need somebody there, right? Eklund with Hurdle, Fabian Zetterlund, who's, has had a few NHL games under his belt, but really, that partnership with him and Granlund, you've seen the best of Zetterlund, even better than what you saw in New Jersey. Now, can you maybe partner a guy with like Philip Zadina, or when Bordelot comes up, or Gushchin comes up, or, any of these other young forwards come up, partner them with Couture, so that way they're not having to kind of learn on the fly. They have someone they can lean on, kind of knows all the tricks of the trades. And again, you're not asking this young player to kind of drive the line. You can kind of ease them into a little bit as the season kind of wraps up. So, how does the injury bug continue to affect the Sharks? It is going to be one of the big storylines. And how do they continue to kind of put a team on the ice, especially with everything that they've dealt with this year? And again, I know these guys aren't all-stars, but this roster was pretty paper thin. And when you're losing guys like Couture, who you're expecting, you're expecting a huge piece of Couture, right? We talked about Couture. That's, that was your 2C last year. He ended this season, if you remember, he was the 1C. You lost him for the entire season. Like, when these guys get back, what can they kind of provide to the Sharks? And if it's not, maybe not helping with the wins and losses, but at least helping with the development of the younger guys. So before we continue, we're going to talk about, of course, kind of the trades, look at some of the contracts, and then, of course, who's going to get called up to take those places. Just need to take a quick break. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of life, but can we talk about something real, like getting prepared for a potential disaster? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. I know the holiday season is finished, but maybe you're still traveling. You're going to go visit some friends, some family, whatever. And the last thing you want to do is be unprepared to take care of yourself or a loved one if you fall ill. Jace Medical can give you the peace of mind before you even hop on a flight. The Jace case is packed with 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial infections, UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. So visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. So go to jacemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. All right. And the big storyline, right, especially for Sharks fans, this is kind of what we've been waiting for, is, the trade deadline. We know Mike Grier was very active last year ahead of the trade deadline. He kind of started around this, about kind of mid-January. You look at like Jacob Megna getting traded, all these kind of little pieces that started happening before the big move of Timo Meier getting traded the week before the trade deadline. And this year it's going to be, I think it's going to be very, very active. Just as a reminder, so the Sharks, after this season, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 forwards who are actively on the roster right now, locked up for next season. Couture and Nico Sturm both are signed for next year as well. And Giovanni Smith, all these guys are on the IR. Assume we'll be back at some point. But as of the active roster right now, there's 5 guys who are signed into next year. Tomas Hertl, he's going to be here. Mikael Granlund, maybe. Luke Cunning, who's an Luke Cunning's not signed, but potentially. Fabian Zetterlund, he's going to be here. William Eklund and Scott Sabrin, who's probably going to be back in the AHL. So those are the guys who are forwards who are on the active roster who are signed into next year. Other guys like Philip Zadina, RFA, if the Sharks want to keep him, they can keep him. They'll probably keep him because he probably won't cost very much. And he has shown flashes, and that's for a different day. Luke Cunningham, RFA, I assume he will be here, especially if David Quinn's still here. I assume he will be here. So that kind of leaves the expiring contracts. So guys who could potentially get traded. Kevin Labanc, I don't see it happening. Mike Hoffman, Anthony Duclair, Alexander Barabanov, and then you have Justin Bailey and Ryan Carpenter. So realistically, kind of, we know the names, right? Barabanov, Duclair, potentially Hoffman. Those are kind of your big pieces of guys who could be traded, at least from the forward department. Labanc, I just don't see it. His contract is too much. You have to eat a lot of that. The Sharks are already, if you wanted to eat contracts, you might be suited to do it elsewhere. Mikael Granlund, who is signed into next year, but has been playing kind of the best of any of the new additions. He is a potential piece that teams could look at, as adding more, probably more as a third line player for their team, but, is kind of having to play up with the Sharks right now. So among the forwards, right, it's going to be Duclair, who I don't think is going to be here next year, especially with kind of the season that he's having with San Jose. Barabanov is going to be interesting because of, we know Barabanov has not been having a good season this year, right? Especially kind of dealing with injury and struggling to come back with injury and hasn't really shown a lot of consistency. But if a team kind of looks through that and looks back at what he's done the past 2 years and can kind of talk themselves into that. But even like a guy like Luke Cunnin, who could be available if you wanted to add a bottom 6 player who is cost controlled, think of like Barclay Goodrow with the Lightning a couple of years ago, right? They wanted a bottom 6 guy who's going to be cost controlled for them. So that's a potential there. Among the defensemen, again, it's Vlasic, who's not getting traded because that's Vlasic just not getting traded. Mario Ferraro is got 2 years left on his deal, but again, I think teams have been poking around that. Again, you want a younger defenseman, kind of entering his prime right now, is at a decent contract at $3.25 million, and I think would be. When we've talked about Ferraro before, but I think he would be a good addition for a playoff type of team that doesn't need him to be the like number 1 defenseman or kind of first pairing defenseman. If he's your 4th defenseman, you're probably looking pretty good. So, and Ferraro, I think if someone is willing to kind of give it up to Mike Greer Ferraro, I could really see that one happening. Jan Ruda's got 1 more year on his deal at 2.7. Again, I don't see it with him unless the Sharks wanted to kind of eat some of that salary. But again, you're already at 2 retained slots. So you can only have 1 more. And if you want to kind of tie up all your retained slots for the next 2 seasons, doesn't sound too appealing to me, but maybe the Sharks take a bad contract back type of situation. So then Kyle Burroughs is signed at $1.1 million. The guys who are on expire kind of deals, Kalen Addison, who's an RFA. Again, he just kind of got here. Henry Thrun, the Sharks aren't trading, right? Thrun's been great. Nikita Hochuk, the Sharks aren't trading. And then Ty Emerson. I don't see the Sharks trading him. I think he's played really well, and I think he's somebody you want to invest in your future with. So, and then, of course, the goalies, right? You have Capo Kakinen, who is on an expiring deal and has been playing really well, except for, that last game. I'm not going to hold that last game against the Maple Leafs against him. And then Mackenzie Blackwood, who's, played really, really well. Does have another year left on his deal, but those are both very affordable contracts. So, which of these players are going to be around? And the goalies is going to be interesting because, right, you don't really have a answer kind of waiting in the Barracuda. Magnus Krona kind of got brought up and, was unfortunately, sent out to the firing squad and his game. And Eetu Makiniemi has started to look good with the Barracuda, but again, it's always been the kind of the issue of health with him. Can he stay healthy? You don't really have a goalie who's kind of busting on the door, and you have Georgi Romanov, who has looked good for the Barracuda, but again, I don't think it'd be fair to put him out there in the NHL right now, just because of he's still getting used to just playing North American hockey. So maybe it's one of those you kind of trade and you take on a veteran goaltender who can hold down the fort at least through the end of the season. I would say a guy like Aaron Dell, but Aaron Dell just signed with the Ontario Reign. But a guy like that, right, who can kind of come in, maybe even like a Big Save Dave type of player. It's a goalie like that, right, who can kind of come in and hold down the fort for you for a little bit. I could see them, if they do trade one of these pieces, making a smaller trade to kind of bring someone in. That way they're not having to then kind of protect their younger goalies as the season winds down. I know it's only like a month and a half, but still, right, you don't want to kind of put your younger goalies in a position like that. So who's going to be here and who's not going to be here, I think is a huge question. Even looking at some of the injury reserve guys like Nico Sturm, right? Very affordable contract at $2 million. He's going to play, exactly what you're right. Defensive stalwart to go play in your bottom pairing. If a team comes calling for him because they want to, help their penalty kill, they want to kind of spruce up their bottom 6. I could see a guy like, again, cost controlled too, right? A lot of these cup contenders are looking for that cost controlled guy, and Nico Sturm at $2 million I know he's been hurt this year, but that's a bargain, right? Like he's been awesome for when he's been healthy. He's been awesome for the Sharks, and he would help a team out immensely. So the Sharks do have a ton of pieces. None of those like grade A, we're going to get you're going to get a ton of stuff, but this could be one of those where you're just kind of adding prospects, you're adding picks, just trying to add stuff to the cabinet and gives you ammunition if you want to do other things later. So if you want to, trade for a guy's goalie who's maybe kind of fallen out of favor, you trade a 6th-round pick for him and give him a chance here, Mackenzie Blackwood, or, just kind of gives you ammunition to try to do stuff later on. So that, of course, I think is one of the biggest storylines is who's still here after the trade deadline. So of course, we'll continue to track that here at Locked On Sharks. So we'll talk about who's deserving of getting called up, and of course, can the Sharks finish the job here in just 1 second. We're at the halfway point of the season, Sharks fans, and I know this season has been brutal, but regardless of the Sharks' current standings, I want to remind you that you can still win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick either NHL superstars like McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, or pick some of your just favorite Sharks players like Tomas Hertl, Mario Ferraro, Slippery Pete, and record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player sets. You're going to be Sharks fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right. Excuse me there. Oh, I'm dying. All right. All right. People go out. Who gets called up? And I think there's 3 big names, right? Daniel Gushchin, who was named to the AHL All-Star event game for the Barracuda. Congratulations to Daniel Gushchin. More than deserving of that call-up, or that recognition. He's had an amazing year with the Barracuda, and he deserves to be playing NHL games at this season. So he's one. The other names, Shakir Mukhamadullin, right? Kind of the big piece prospect-wise that you got back from New Jersey Devils. And he has been one of my favorite players to watch on the Barracuda. A little bit tougher week the past couple of days against the Reign. Wasn't his best games, but that Ontario Reign team is very, very good. But still, body of work of the season. He's had a great season. Those are those 2. And then Thomas Borlo, right? Borlo, who's a little bit of up and down. I think he's played pretty well, but he has been dealing with an injury with the Barracuda right now. Don't know the extent of it, any of that stuff. You know how it's very tight-lipped getting information from the Barracuda on that. So those are the 3 kind of big names, right? And I think all 3 of those guys will be playing NHL games because, again, these are potentially your future. Borlo, who's going to be an RFA this season, you can re-sign him. His contract's easy to, you have his rights, et cetera, et cetera. So you can just kind of keep kicking the can down the road with the RFAs. Those guys are going to be playing NHL games this year. Shakir Mukhamadullin, right? Still has another year of his ELC next year. But you want to see, right? You want to kind of see what you got in Mukhamadullin, who has played really well with the Barracuda. And he's going to kind of fit an answer and expected to be. I expect Mukhamadullin to be on the Sharks team at a training camp next year, right? I know there's still kind of a logjam of left-handed defensemen, but looking at their kind of quickly projecting their roster next year, you might be losing Ferraro and Vlasic, right? There's 2 left-handed defensemen right there. And you can it's easier to kind of make that move, especially if one or both of those guys are gone and going into next year. And Mukhamadullin, right? You need to kind of see. Gushchin, we talked about him before, but his big thing, right, is he needs to get stronger. That's a lot more of an off-season thing, right? It's kind of continue to build up that strength. But seeing what he's learned and as he's trying to continue to round out his game in the AHL, kind of like what we saw with Eklund last year, was okay. You played really well in the AHL. Let's see what you've learned. Let you kind of play these games at the end of the season and then kind of take that into the offseason, knowing that you're going to be competing really hard to win a job next season on the NHL team. And, depending on who's here and who's not, like Gushchin should be on the NHL team next season. The same thing with Bordelot. What have you learned as you transition from a center to a left wing? Can you work on those habits, those that have been kind of keeping you back, that playing defense, back checking, all that type of stuff. We know you have plenty of offensive talent. What can you do if you're not scoring type of thing? Other guys who I think should be playing NHL games at the end of this season, I would love to see Leon Gavanke get play. Like, he has been awesome to watch on the Barracuda. Right-handed offensive defenseman, and he's 24. And it's almost a shame that he hasn't gotten to play an NHL game yet this year or in his career, right? He's been in the AHL for years. He was I interviewed him this close to going. It was literally on his way moving back to Germany before he got the call that he had been traded. Leon Gavanke deserves, and I think the Sharks will do right by him and give him a chance because especially for how well he's played. I'd like to see him get a chance to play in the NHL. I think he could run the power play, even as power play 2, whatever. I want to see Gavanke get a chance. He's been a good soldier. He's kind of done, he's helped Mukhamadullin a ton. I wouldn't even be mad if you brought them both up and just let them both play together because they already have that kind of chemistry built in. So he's another guy I'm going to be interested to see. And then which of these young guys kind of get a chance to kind of earn their rights. You have a guy like Ethan Cardwell who's played really well to start the season, but kind of maybe hitting that rookie wall a little bit right now in the AHL. Ozzy Weisblatt, the former first-round pick, he has not made his NHL debut yet. Same thing with a guy like Brandon Coe. Tristan Robbins, who's missed, a good chunk of the season with an injury, hasn't seen the production kind of hit there yet. Is he going to make a push to kind of play in the NHL games at the end of the season like he did last year? Jacob Peterson, another one of those guys, can he make it back to the NHL here at some point? So a lot of kind of intrigue and see which of these Barracuda guys flash, and not only flash, but just have that's consistency, right? That's always a big word with Greer and Quinn and staff, is that consistency, right? Doing all the little things, doing all the right things that gets you and lets you stay in the NHL. So which of these guys kind of continue to pop. And the last thing, right? Finish the job. Yes, I know we are in the midst of a 12-game losing streak, and the Sharks do need to win a game here, even if it's just for morale. Do need to win a game, but keep your eyes on the prize. I don't think you'll see these long losing streaks. I think you'll see more mixes of winning 1 out of 4 or something like that, or I think you're going to see a little bit more mixed up as the schedule softens up here a little bit, but finish the job, put yourself in position to get that lottery ticket that is Macklin Celebrini, who will change your a franchise changing player, Macklin Celebrini. So no, he's not Connor Bedard, but if you're getting a guy, potentially Adam Fantilli, again, you're getting a legitimate bona fide 1C, and I think it helps to solve a lot of potential issues for you going forward. So finish the job, put yourself in position. Let's not just do the 12-game losing streak. Again, just mix it up a little bit, right? We don't need to go streaking. We can just, if you win 1 out of 4 going forward, I'm fine with that. Just give me a win every once in a while, but finish the job. So We'll be back tomorrow to break down the Canadiens game. And we'll probably dive into the prospect. Maybe we'll do a prospect brief. Third segment, kind of look at one of these Sharks prospects here now that everyone's starting to kind of get back in after the holidays. So we'll dive into one of those guys here. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube as well. If you haven't subscribed, great time now. We got some good guests coming up. So we might actually, no, I'm going to keep that to myself. So so make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. You can also follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.